Welcome to another parent-teacher video lesson from the earlygiftedmanual.com, a free website for homeschooled children 3 to 7 years old and their parents that promotes and develops giftedness at an early age. I am Gary Blank, the creator of that site, and your host and facilitator for this video and all of the videos in my educational program. As the video lessons are designed to work in conjunction with the program on my website, I ask you to, at some point, click on the URL link in the description box below, and this action will take you to the earlygiftedmanual.com. By doing that, you will be able to put this lesson and all of the video lessons here on my channel in the proper context of the total program that I am presenting to you and your child. And welcome everyone to lesson 57. This lesson is called Art Tools and Materials, and in this lesson I will discuss with you some of the art tools and materials that are used in this program, and I will also give you some techniques for working with these tools to teach your child how to use these tools. So, materials, we'll go through these very quickly here because then eventually here we'll go through all of them one at a time. We'll be using all of them one at a time. So to start out with, some copy paper, a pencil or pencils, and we'll talk about the different kinds very shortly. Let me move this stuff out of the way here. Colored pencils. I have a nice set of 24 here. Crayons, you don't need a lot of them. I just chosen a few here for this exercise. Some markers, so once again, just a few markers. A pair of scissors, a pair of child scissors, the small ones. I think they're 5 inches long. A glue stick. And of course a glue stick looks just like this. And some Elmer's glue or Elmer's school glue, depending on which you prefer. That's called white glue. A small brush for applying the white glue. A jar top. Could be a jar top from anything really, a container or an actual metal jar top, and some wax paper, some paper with a somewhat waterproof coating. Okay, let's start out by discussing pencils and sharpeners. And of course, as you know, I've preferred this type of pencil, this fatter pencil. For your child's uses. They just seem to like it a little better. It's easier for them to hold. And of course, as you know, there are thinner pencils. And going back to this pencil, of course, you see there's no eraser. I wouldn't use a pencil with an eraser until your child is confident in writing or drawing with a pencil. Sometimes they get too carried away with the eraser, but that's up to you. You can monitor that. And let's see what else. And of course, I've always sang the praises of mechanical pencils, but that's up to you. You can use those if you want, because obviously they never need sharpening. You just replace the lead. And speaking of sharpening, here's what one of the commercial pencil sharpeners looks like. I know that's black, but you can see there are 2 sizes there. There's a size for this bigger pencil, and you can hear it doing its job, and a size for these not quite as thick pencils. So they're very handy to have, and they work well. And of course, you always have the option of having in your home somewhere an electric pencil sharpener or one of the crank the cranking pencil sharpeners if you're really using them a lot. Okay, that's pencils. Let's talk a little bit about the colored pencils. I have a set of 24 made by the Prang company, and I love these because they're very high quality. As you can see, they have a large diameter, very much like the pencils we've been using. So that's nice. And they have nice soft lead, so you get a nice rich color from them. You buy a cheap set of colored pencils, and sometimes the leads are very hard, and your child will not enjoy using them very much. So I would say go to an art supply store and buy your color pencils and pay a little more and get a good set such as this one here. You'll never regret it. And how about crayons? Like pencils, I prefer these, what I call fatter crayons. They're a thicker diameter than, let me see, do I have another one here? I guess not. They're a thicker diameter than some of the crayons you usually see. Oh, yes, I do. I do have one here. See the difference? It's a little thicker than the ones you usually see in crayon boxes, but I really like these, and kids seem to like them too, especially when they're working big. You can lay down a lot of color with them. If you decide to go with the skinnier ones, look at this. You can actually purchase crayon sharpeners where the crayon fits right in there, and you can give the crayon a nice sharp tip. So, whichever you prefer is just fine. So whatever your child prefers actually is just fine. So either one of those will work just fine. All right. One of the things I want to show you concerning all three of these items, pencils, colored pencils, and fat crayons, is you really need to teach your child how to get some control over the pencil. And control, I mean being able to vary the pressure and do shading. And I'll show you what I mean. Let me choose this pencil here. I'm going to start out as you can see, first of all, I have the pencil, I'm holding it with the regular grip, maybe back a little ways. And I'm just very light pressure with these short back and forth strokes. And you can show your child how to do this and then let him or her have a go at it. And now watch what happens when I put a little more pressure on. Yes, the shading gets darker. Now watch what happens when I put a little more pressure on. Yes, the shading gets much darker. So those are two excellent techniques that you can work on with your child. This idea of shading from light to dark depending on the pressure you're putting on the point, and this motion of the shading motion, which is just these medium-sized arcs you're making with the pencil and the lead, that's really coming totally from your wrist. So very important to teach that. Colored pencils, it's going to look somewhat the same. Let me try a green here. As you can see, that's very light. As you press down, it gets darker. Press down more, and it gets very dark. So your child now knows that they can get a very light color or a very saturated color, both with pencils, colored pencils, and crayons. Let's see, what color should I choose here? How about this red-violet? I think I'll come up here once again. As you can see, very light strokes, shading in, shading. Now it gets a little darker, a little more pressure, and finally very much pressure. And we call that gradations of shading, and just a very, very important skill for your child to acquire. And it probably won't happen overnight, but keep working on this with your child, and before you know it, they will be fairly skilled at this type of activity. And now let's talk about markers, how to use them and how to take care of them. And I have a cup full of some markers here, and let's see, of different colors. There's really two different types of markers. As you can see, one is longer and thinner, and the other one is a bit wider and shorter, and it really doesn't matter. Either one works just fine. Sometimes you hear this one being called a fine point marker, and this is just a regular marker, but there's really not that much difference in the line. So either of these would be good. Let's work with this one first. So I'm going to take off the top, and here's the first important lesson you want to teach to your child. He or she may want to just throw this on the table somewhere, and of course, it'll probably end up rolling off on the floor. So you want to teach your child to place the cap. There's a little nib right here, and the cap goes right on like that. So a big plus. So it doesn't get lost. Your child knows where it is, and it's very handy when it comes time to put the cap back on the marker. So trust me, my experiences with little kids, this is a very important thing. Otherwise, you'll have a set of markers with all kinds of missing, a set of dried out markers, I should say, with all kinds of missing tops. So there you go. It's ready to go. And let's see, maybe at this point, before I do that, I should probably show you what it looks like on this one. Same thing. It works pretty much the same way. Okay. So I think the thing about markers is they require very little pressure, just a very light touch gives you a nice dark line. So it's very important to make that point to your child. A lot of kids, I shouldn't say a lot of kids, some kids can really abuse markers. Like one thing I've seen a lot is they'll hold it like this in their fist, and here the cap is coming off, just a minute. They'll hold it in their fist, and they'll do what I call stippling, which is to put a bunch of dots on the paper, and they'll be hammering the point of the marker into the paper like this. Well, what that will do is it will destroy the point on the marker. So you have to discourage that. And you could show your child that it's very easy to make little dots on the paper, which once again we call stippling. Very light touch will do it. Doesn't take much at all. And kids will use this effect. A lot of kids like to use this stippling effect. So very light touch. And of course that goes for making lines too. Do not have to press hard at all. And if your child learns that lesson, your markers will last a long time. The tips won't get destroyed. So another very important lesson for working with markers, a light touch. And let's see, what else oh yes, let's say we're finished using the marker. Take the top off the back. It's nice and handy. There it is right on the back. It's not on the floor somewhere. And here's how we close it. And you push all the way, or rather your child pushes all the way till he can't push any farther. So this little lip comes right over it here. And you can show him, and then you could let him or her try it a few times. And as far as this other model, of marker is concerned, your child will put it on, and then he will notice some resistance, and this is the reason why. So listen very closely. Hear that click? That click tells your child that the marker cap is on the way it should be, nice and tight. And of course, if they're not put on tightly, they will dry out and be useless and end up in the garbage can. So, as you can see, a lot of this lesson is pretty much about teaching your child how to take care of these markers so they will last a long time, and you won't be having to throw them away and getting new sets every couple of weeks.